hired immediately after graduation.
One of the things I love about IT is that you can work from anywhere you want.
You could become an IT pro in just months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
It worked for me, and I know it can work for you.
This is one student's experience. Individual results vary.
If you want to talk sports, you want to talk local, you want to talk with Monty Hill Jr. and Tim Tackett, it's all sports talk. Weekdays at 5 on WGNS. We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning on a Thursday morning. Summer's here, but we may have one of those storms in the days coming up. And we sure hope the CMA people will be safe, especially the outdoor concert people. We are very, very fortunate to have with us this morning a gentleman who epitomizes the quality of political leaders who are elected. We only hear it oftentimes, the people who say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and certainly aren't responsive. But the overwhelming number of elected people in the federal, the state, the local level, are men and women who are very, very hardworking, conscientious, passionate about what they do, and go about the business of leadership and the business of responding to their constituents. This morning we have the great pleasure of having State Representative Brian Terry. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, and I always like to start out, we did this before, you're a regular visitor of ours, but I think it really helps. Brian, kind of give a background of you were born where and schooled where and your medical career. I have to say at this point, it is not often that a medical professional decides to split their very busy day, which is normally very busy, with the opportunity to represent constituents at various elected levels. And Brian Terry is one of those who is a doctor. So I don't know whether I call you Dr. Terry or Representative Terry or Dr. Representative, or Representative Doctor.
Yeah, that's funny. Just call me Brian. That's when I first got elected. The nurses at the hospital were joking about what they could call me and asking me, how do we call you, Dr. Representative, this, that, and the other. I said, you can just call me the Honorable, and they just
Absolutely.
laughed.
Well, if you become a judge, we'll have a Dr. Judge, retired rep.
Yeah, everybody just calls me Brian, so yeah.
You were born where, Brian?
I was born in Oklahoma City.
Okay, and came east? Family decided to come east?
Yeah, I grew up there, Oklahoma City. I actually grew up South Oklahoma City, and I went to Moore High School. So Moore is known for Toby Keith.
Yes.
And unfortunately also known for tornadoes. You talk about weather.
Absolutely.
And I tell people that, to put it in perspective, Murfreesboro is to Nashville what Norman, which is University of Oklahoma, Norman is to Oklahoma City. And
That's
I grew up
Tornado Alley, isn't it? Yep.
And I grew up in Moore, and Moore is essentially is the Smyrna of Oklahoma. And so grew up there, and then I moved. I did my undergraduate at University of Oklahoma, and then went to medical school, Oklahoma College of Medicine. Then
at what point did medical life flip its switch on with you?
Great question. So for me, I've got severe asthma and severe allergies, and I guess I was about 3 years old or so, maybe 4. It was before I started kindergarten, and I had to go into the Oklahoma Allergy Clinic.
And at that age, wow.
I remember, I don't know that I remember this, I know that they probably remember me screaming. I had the allergy testing shots all up and down my legs and arms and back for like 2 days. And so growing up, I had all sorts of shots, allergy shots, and then I would end up in the ER quite frequently because of my asthma.
They knew you by name. You'd walk in, here comes Brian.
Yeah, and yeah, they knew that. And so for me, I wanted to be able to take care of myself and others like me. We grew up, my family was third generation auto salvage. And so, we had a junkyard, and when I was 13, I was
Don't we now call it a recycling
yeah.
yard?
Well, we call it
Yes,
we call it the junkyard, but the out in the yard, and 13, I was pulling parts off cars. In fact, I still my dad made me save money and buy my own set of tools, and so I still have that set of tools. And
You don't use these in the operating room.
no,
Okay.
no,
Hey, we need a wrench. No.
no, for anesthesia, it's a hammer.
Gotcha. Okay. I gotcha.
No, but going out there, it was, when you're in the yard with all the cars out there, and it's 100-degree heat, and you learn pretty quick that's not, you don't want to be out in the heat like that, and but I just wanted to be able to take care of others, and
Did television shows or movies, when there was a major surge of hospital and doctor TV shows, Dr. Welby, so forth, did those inspire you?
No, but I saw where Hot Lips Houlihan just passed away
this week.
And I remember
MASH.
growing up,
Oh,
MASH,
yeah,
yeah,
MASH.
and then
Yep.
some of them dropping ether back then on that show, I think. But I don't know that there was any. I can't think of any shows.
But MASH would have had an influence, sure.
But no, for me it was just, I knew the struggles that I had, and I wanted to be able to take care of myself and others like me, and so that kind of prompted me
Family
to go
would
that
be
way.
very proud.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Your undergraduate, pre-med?
Yeah, my undergraduate degree was in physiological psychology. They, ironically, the University of Oklahoma doesn't offer that as a degree anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I think they call it neuroscience now, and so that was my undergraduate degree. And ironically, they don't. If you're going into medicine, that's one of the problems with medicine right now. Is a lot of people that go into it don't have a background in business, but you can major in anything and go into medical school. I think I had a music major and a dance major in my medical school class.
Do you know if the music major creates a sense of rhythm? And creating this sense of rhythm in the practice might be kind of an interesting roots of medicine.
Yeah, and if they, I guess the creativity that you have, it's a different mindset. We have all types that go into medicine, and just the way the brain functions and the different thoughts.
So
and stuff.
immediately after graduation, your undergraduate degree, you went into med school?
Went into med school.
How'd you pick UT?
Oh, for residency?
Oh, you weren't at UT for medical
No,
school?
it's medical school is Oklahoma College of Medicine,
Okay,
and
okay.
for me that was from a financial standpoint, that was the
Oh,
that was the
state
best option.
tuition,
State, yeah.
Yep.
And then you do what's called the match, and so when you decide what you're going to what area you want to go into, and I actually wanted to be a pulmonologist. And
Going back to your early days.
And the way it worked out for me, I was on my first rotation, my third year of medical school, and that's where you do. So the first 2 years were pretty much just book work, and then your next 2 years are your rotations. My first rotation was obstetrics, and I was in there.
Was that by choice or was that by assignment?
I think it's pretty much by assignment. You got one
okay.
elective, and I was there with a guy. His name was Grant Malden. He and his family. They actually sold. His family sold my family our first horse.
Oh.
But he was a family practice doctor. They were all the Malden Wheeler Clinic. They were family practice doctors, and he quit family practice to go into anesthesia, and so he was doing his OB anesthesia rotation, and I was doing my OB rotation, and he let me put in epidurals and stuff that others weren't being able to do, and my rotation was going to be in orthopedic surgery, I think, in that January, and he convinced me to do anesthesia as a rotation, and I did that, but the thing that drove me away from pulmonary medicine towards anesthesia was because of my asthma. I could not be in a clinic with people that smoked. Most of the people that that pulmonologists take care of are smokers or former smokers, and just the smell of smoke would set me off, and I just couldn't breathe. And so that was not going to be the pathway for me.
Isn't that an interesting observation and an experience?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I ended up rotating through anesthesia, and really enjoyed it, and I liked the hands-on approach, and then so anyway, get back to the match. I think I interviewed at like 8 or 9 different locations, like Arkansas, I think Indiana, Kansas, Arizona, just different places, Scott and White, Temple, Texas, and UT Knoxville. And UT Knoxville was my number one choice. And as I figured, if residency was going to be, it's a lot of work, and it's changed a little bit now, but it was a lot of work. I figured if I'm going to be miserable, I might as well be in a place that seems fun. And I was Knoxville, UT Knoxville was my number one choice, and I must have been in the top 6 because I matched with them. And
Excellent.
So I was there during the Peyton Manning years, and so it was a good time.
And you enjoyed living in Knoxville at the time?
I absolutely loved Knoxville, and it just we when I was finishing residency, I had multiple opportunities. I was at the time, I ended up being the president of the Tennessee Society of Anesthesiologists resident component, and this was, probably pretty much pre-internet.
Yes.
Dating myself here, but I put out feelers for all the residents on where you can find jobs, and so I had multiple opportunities at that time, and as it turns out, I was Mark Hardison, who's a oral surgeon here in town.
Yes.
They have to do 6 months of anesthesia, and he said that they were opening up a surgery center here in Murfreesboro and thought they needed an anesthesiologist. And so so my contact was basically Mark, and I called, and then ironically the office, they said, no, I don't think they're looking to hire anybody. Well, as it turns out, they were actually having a partners meeting that night, and I got a call the next day, and so I came to Murfreesboro. And my wife and I always wanted to be in a town that was maybe had a college, was near a big city. We didn't really want to be in a big city. And
as you described earlier, somewhat of a relationship to Oklahoma City, your relationship in a community to Nashville.
Yeah, and it was ironically, I had actually had taken a job, or actually had agreed to a job and had a contract in hand to go to Denton, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas, when this job here came about, and it was perfect. And obviously we put down roots, and now I represent the area, and so it tells you how much I've thought about the area, and so it's been great.
I'm sure you've been asked this question 100 times at least, but I can't go any further without asking. When did the first spark lit light to get involved in the political process beyond the medical process?
Well, there's probably 2 different sparks.
Okay.
So I will say, going back to, probably several sparks, I guess. I can go back to remembering in grade school we having to vote at school on Ford or Carter.
1976.
Yeah. And then I remember it was not a good time in the late 70s, auto salvage. And I remember when Reagan got elected, that changed things for my family. And so that kind of put me in that direction. And then
early 1980s.
Yeah, and then when I was in college, during physiological psychology, I worked in doing research in a rat lab.
Oh.
And there was talk radio at the time, and you're in a lab and there's nothing else to do, so you're listening to talk radio. So that kind of spurned my interest. So I became politically attentive. I ran into, which was where I used to get my hair cut. His name was Larry, and I can't remember what his last name was, but the congressman that represented Moore got his hair cut at the same place, and I ran into him one time getting my hair cut, and then J.C. Watts, who was the quarterback for OU, and he ended up being a congressman. It was quite bizarre. I ran into him at a 7-Eleven, and shook hands with him, and then I thought, well, that's kind of neat. My congressman's in a 7-Eleven, and then I ran into him again in a Walmart, and he remembered me, and then ran into him again at the mall. And I was like, your congressman, here you are, you think, elected officials are...
He's 2,000 miles away,
and
there he is.
And the fact that somebody would remember me, just some kid, whatever, and I thought that was pretty neat. But for me, the thing that kind of set me off and kind of got me, the question that you asked is, what was your get off the couch moment? Mm-hmm. And for me, that was the 2012 presidential election.
Okay.
I was actually on call at the hospital, and I mean,
Romney, Obama, yep.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't really care for either at the time, and I was able to get home for the election, and I was really just kind of disappointed the way the country was going with either option. Mm-hmm. And I actually went upstairs and apologized to my son, and I told him, my generation is failing your generation. I'm going to see how I can get involved.
Wow.
I had no interest in running for office.
Yeah.
And ironically, I think, so I guess Penn and Teller is coming. This is how I'm going to tie this in.
From
Penn and
Las
Teller's-
Vegas, yep.
They're coming in, I think, to the Ryman next week. And so I don't know if I'll get the opportunity to see them or not. But I think it was 2013, either late January, early February, I went to a national ASA, American Society of Anesthesiologists conference. It was a political business conference. And I was looking at getting like a business certificate through the ASA. And while I'm there at that conference, they had these breakaway roundtable discussions, and I went to a discussion on politics, and I met with the state and the federal liaison, and they're ironically, unfortunately, for a lot of physicians just aren't all that.
They leave it up to AMA, for
Yeah,
example,
something. Yeah. And so at the end of that discussion, both the state and federal folks were saying, you need to run for office. And I said, I don't need to run for office. And at the time, Jim Tracy and Joe Carr were going to run for Congress. And they said, if you can make a difference, and if you this is your best opportunity to have an open seat. Otherwise, it may be
2014 or
yeah. So that was the 2014 election, but
correct.
Yeah, this discussion I had with them was in January of 2013, and so that night I was going out. My wife and I were going out to dinner and to go see Penn and Teller, and we're having dinner, and I told my wife, you're not going to believe what these folks told me. They told me I should run for office, and she pretty much, well, have you ever thought of it? And
so
that was kind of the.
So she didn't say, "Oh, you're kidding."
Yeah,
you're
didn't
joking.
laugh.
Oh, that's good.
So so from that point, I kind of looked to see if it was feasible, if it was something I could do, and so lo and behold, I'll tell you a story about this. As I'm trying to decide if I'm going to run for office or not, you go and you try to meet with as many people as you can, and you sit down, and I still remember sitting down with somebody, and they asked me, well, who are your handlers? And I
what's a handler? Yes. Who's holding my coat?
I'm just some guy that wants to run for office and make a difference. I don't know what you're. And so I mean, I was so naive at the political,
Now, was this for the state legislature?
Yeah, state rep, yeah.
Okay. So you hadn't thought at that point maybe city council first or county commission or?
No, yeah, I met with some other folks, and I thought, if I can make a difference, if I'm going to put the time and effort into it, that's, someone said, well, go big or go home. I was like, well, I don't know how big state rep is, but and that was something I did think, whether, I do remember when like Central Magnet became a magnet school, I did advocate for that because my son ended up going there because I felt like that was something that our community needed and students needed. And I knew some folks that had been on there, but now for me it was, where I could have the biggest impact.
Exactly. This was an open seat. Was this Joe's seat or
it was
Jim's seat? Joe's seat.
Yeah, it was open. Yeah.
Okay. And number of people for the primary, or?
So I had 2 opponents in the primary and then 1 in the general.
Good. So you're in your 11th year.
Correct.
I always ask this question among elected officials because I've observed it personally as a city manager for many, many years, watching among mayors and council members and state people. You're a very calm, very mindful individual, so you probably do not bring out the issues and controversy that somebody who might be more out zooming, we'll put it that point, in the political process. But you can run into situations either in elections, re-elections, or issues that you will get people very, very, very upset at you, with you, take it on personally. Probably one of the greatest issues we have today in our nation is the intensity of how people react on the issue. You have big shoulders, and it sounds like your wife would be very able to handle if you had a very nasty attack on you personally as an elected official. How do you deal with a child? I can always remember this experience that a council member, really a hot issue, they were attacking, putting mailers in front doors of people and what have you that were just horrible. And I always remember the council member saying, I can handle this. Even my wife can handle this. But when my second grader came home with a black eye, and I ultimately found out that he got the black eye because he was defending his dad in the playground, how do you deal with the emotion spreading on to children of an elected official? That's got to be rough.
Yeah, and my daughter's 16. Our son, he's 28.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, knock on wood.
Mm-hmm.
I've been fortunate from that aspect that
Sure.
She hasn't been bullied or picked on or anything from that aspect. My son hasn't. I know that my son, when he was in high school, was when I first ran,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's in grad school now. I know that the lab that he's at now, and those students, they know who I am, and
Mm-hmm.
they actually. I mean, he's told me before that his friends and his students that he works with say. I mean, he's said that they wish that there were more elected officials like me.
I will say that with my research and my knowledge that I have gained, you stand way at the top of the pile in the mountain in terms of men and women who are serving the state. This question also occurs to, I'm sure you've had so often, your professional medical life is putting people to sleep. How do you wake up people to get involved and participate? You got to wake them up.
I wake them up in that, yeah.
So how is you're putting them to sleep before surgery? How do you wake them up?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I often joke that I can put you to sleep with drugs or talking politics.
Sure.
One of the two. And but that's most people, again, it goes to the get off the couch and what motivates people. And unfortunately, and this is not necessarily, to me, a lot of things that people, when they get people motivated, it's manipulation.
Exactly.
And it's, most people are motivated. It's usually, there's 6 really emotions or topics, or moods or passions that you can have, and fear, anger, and grief are the negative ones. And I think it's patriotism, hope, and I'm drawing a blank on the 6th, the third positive one.
Faith may be one.
But it's usually one of those 6 that get people motivated for something. Obviously, the most motivating emotion that people have is fear.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate in that whether it's the media or these, I call them grifters, these political grifters or something that go out there and drive up fear.
Social media, of course.
And social media is horrible with this. Yes. And particularly when you get people in an echo chamber and you give out, just a snippet of the information that's maybe not even close to being correct, but you get people mad or they get afraid. And it just, and from like a neuroscience standpoint, when logic uses our prefrontal cortex, but when you get an emotion involved, it shuts down and people act on their emotions. And there's actually a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And thinking fast is more your intuition, but also based off of emotions. And thinking slow is more your logical progression of things. And a lot of thinking is, just intuitive and right off the bat. And so if you shut down because of an emotion, and that's how, when you're trying to talk to somebody on an issue or trying to get them, I still remember some guy coming to me at the Boulevard, and he was very emotional. And at the time, I tried to, he was with his wife, and I tried to calm the situation down and get him into a situation where I knew that he could have a rational thought, but I didn't think it was going to happen at that time. But I gave him my card, my number, and and invited him, because oftentimes you just need to take a breath and have that conversation.
And you have to sit down. Can't stand. If you're ever in a discussion, you want to make sure, number one, both of you are sitting, and even in terms of conflict, if you're sitting, let's say you're at the Boulevard in an outdoor cafe or what have you, and a constituent comes up and they're standing and telling you the way the world should be, they're standing, you're sitting, and the psychological effect would be rather key. Putting on your medical hat as an elected official, how would you diagnose the health of the state of Tennessee at present? That's a broad question, I realize. But diagnosis, do we have high sugar? Do we have too much cholesterol?
We probably, we, and that's the thing, they call, social determinants of health. And, in the South in particular, and I'm very liberty-minded, and therein lies the issue of a lot of the South is we don't want to be told, what's good for us, we want to, be able to do things on our own. And so we like our fried chicken, we like grits, the big gulps, and so the issue of your whether it's your cholesterol or your insulin resistance and all that, we obviously have issues in Tennessee, and that's something that we have to delve on an individual basis, and getting, that's something, at least, I know there's maybe some controversy, but if you put away the emotion and listen to the, what's going on with RFK Jr. and trying to get, whether the food pyramid, you're changing that and getting people educated. And that was actually, like I was telling you earlier today,
right.
I downloaded a book on lies I told in med school, and it's about the different things that over the years that we've been told by, whether it's, the food industry or pharma or something like that.
You've got a sequel to it. Lies I heard in the legislature.
Maybe so. But
we're visiting this morning with a gentleman that, in my opinion, and my opinion is worth only as much as I think, and my wife assumes my opinion to be, is the epitome of the elected official today, not only locally or statewide and even nationally. State Representative Dr. Brian Terry. We'll be right back, and probably going to be talking more about the health of Tennessee and how do we improve it.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
First Shot, growing in Christ with life and athletic skills.
So we teach God's Word at everything we do to implant it in them so that they understand that the only way to get through the world is with God on their side.
First Shot founder and executive director Andy Herzer.
Our focus is on our inner city here at Patterson Park.
From academics to athletics, First Shot's focus is toward building a stronger, more courageous spirit to face opportunities and obstacles that our youth confront every day. To find out more about First Shot, go to firstshottn.org.
What happens when the thrill of Powerball meets the thrill of NASCAR? You get a chance to win an exciting trip for two to the NASCAR Championship race in Phoenix, Arizona. Plus, the chance to win $1 million in a special drawing. Enter the NASCAR Powerball Playoff Second Chance Drawing at tnviprewards.com between May 10th and June 30th for your chance to win. The Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing fun. Please play responsibly. NASCAR is used with express permission. NASCAR LLC is not a sponsor of this promotion.
Game day is coming, and are you ready to represent the Blue Raiders? At Raider Tees, we've got the largest selection of officially licensed Middle Tennessee gear in town. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, even tailgating essentials. You name it, we've got it. No more searching through random stores. Everything you need is right here at 111 East MTCS Road, right across from MTCS. Get game day ready at Raider Tees. Bigger, better, and go blue.
In retirement, it's all about income. Your money, making money, and you're not spending down your principal. That's the way we do it at Retirement Income Solutions. So if you're spending down your principal or your money's not making money, keeping you ahead of inflation, check us out today at risolutions.net. risolutions.net. And make sure to join us Saturdays at noon and Sunday afternoons at 1 for Retirement Income Solutions Radio with Nathan Cox and Lindsay Cotter.
Good Neighbor Events is brought to you by the law offices of John Day, AmeriCare Pest Control, and Old National Bank.
I've got pests, bees, buzzing, rodents running all through my house, ants chewing wood, and look, there's a mouse. I'm overrun with pests, but you're gonna be sure, safe and secure. It's the last rites for those pests. Call the best of the best to get rid of your pests.
893-7111. AmeriCare Services Incorporated. Call us today. 893-7111.
June is busting out all over with WGNS Good Neighbor events. The 16th annual MTSU Alumni Summer College. There are still a few openings available. Register online or phone 615-898-2922. That's MTSU's 16th Annual Alumni Summer College, June 25th through the 27th. Put this on your calendar. The Taste of Rutherford, the annual fundraiser for Main Street, Murfreesboro, will be Saturday, July the 19th, 6 until 9 in the evening. Don't miss A Taste of Rutherford. Get with Main Street, Murfreesboro for more information. Oh, and this is the 33rd Annual Secret Garden Weekend. For information about the Secret Garden events, contact the Discovery Center at Murphy Spring. That's this weekend. Oh, would you like to volunteer at Greenhouse Ministries? They have an orientation meeting to show you what's available. And that's every Thursday morning at 10 at Greenhouse Ministries at 307 South Academy Street. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
A few spotty showers and thunderstorms possible late this afternoon. Otherwise, a blend of clouds and sunshine develops a high into the upper 80s. Tonight, slight chance for storms, a low of 69. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS.
Currently, it's 71.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
This is Bill Krause again on the WGNS Radio Roundtable Thursday morning edition. And we're having a Thursday morning visit with one of our state legislators, one of 5 in Rutherford County, as the county grows and gets a slightly higher percentage of the total state legislature. Dr. Representative Brian Terry. Brian, we were talking off the air before we came on, and it's not an issue unique to Tennessee, but certainly Tennessee would be way in the front of this problem. The ability to provide quality medical care to the rural parts of the state. And here we have 95 counties. Certainly you get the urban counties like Davidson and Shelby, etc., with probably the world's best or among the world's best medical facilities. But when you look at maybe 89, 90 rural counties out there, how are we dealing with that issue? How serious is the issue of not even quality, minimum medical care? Who wants to go out and work at a rural hospital that may not have the funding or have the resources to continue?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And the business of medicine has changed over, the last 15, 20 years. I mean, you can go back to, the Affordable Care Act and some of the changes within it, and the amount of, I guess you can say, overhead and the amount of bureaucracy that is there. It is, it's gotten more difficult for the little guy, whether you're an independent practice type of physician. You don't have the economy of scale to compete or to really. I mean, like if say if you're private family practice type doctor, particularly in a rural area, it used to you could sit down with your patient and spend a lot of time with them and get to know them and figure out what's going on with them. And now it's you have to spend less 6 to 8 minutes with them, or you can't keep your doors open. And so a lot of those small practices end up having to sell out their practice. And when you talk about like from a hospital perspective, whether you have, the hospitals pretty much make their money off of procedures, ERs and procedures, but the procedures are, whether it's surgery or interventional radiology or something along those lines, and they'll be paid more for that. And the hospitals actually get hospital fees for that, whereas the providers, you get your fee, and whether it's Medicare or Medicaid, which those rates are way below commercial rates. And the issue that you often have in rural areas is it's either you have a higher percentage of Medicare or Medicaid than you do of a commercial carrier, and that's whether it's jobs or something along those lines. And so with the business changing, and like I say, from a hospital perspective, you have to have, if you have a 100-bed hospital, you have to generate so many millions of dollars per bed. And if you can't keep those beds full, then you're losing money on that. And if you don't have providers that are generating, like surgeons or interventional radiologists or something like that are doing those type of procedures in that area, then it doesn't make sense financially for them to stay open or to open a new hospital in those areas. And so what you're seeing now a lot of is consolidation, or they will put out standalone ERs or something like that, where they can or have a small facility, and then it feeds into their bigger facility, and so it's less cost for the small facility. And then they they may own their own ambulance service, and their own ambulance service, so now they're vertically integrated.
Please don't tell me, and
that.
also their own funeral home.
I don't know about that, but
we take you in and we take you out.
But that's one of the issues, and then so the business has changed from that perspective. But now you're also, and this was something that I have worked on, and I'll continue to work on this next year. We're facing a major crisis in physician shortages. And you have, I think the AMA has projected by 2034 somewhere between 37,000 and 124,000 physician shortage. And
as the population increases, we live longer, we require more medical service.
Well, we do that, and so the American Association of American Medical Colleges is projecting about 90,000. So it's probably 90 to 100,000 we're short. But the also thing that you're getting is those that are my age or a little bit older that are now retiring. The physicians that are coming in, I think the number is like 1.6 physicians that are coming in to replace the ones that are retiring. Because the change of how medicine is now, it's more of a work-life balance, and people don't want to put in the 70, 80 hours. And even like in residency, there's a time limit on how many hours you can during a week as a resident. And so and then if you're coming out and you don't own your own business and you're just working, whether it's for a hospital or you're working for a clinic, and you don't have the ability to own your own practice, a lot of people just want to come in, punch the clock, go home, and will cut back on their hours, and they just want to take care of patients and leave, and that's
well, there was
the
a
change.
crisis a few years ago about insurance, and the cost of insurance was driving out both the sole proprietor medical as well as even having a massive impact on the clinic and the hospital.
Yeah, it is. And so like for us, like in anesthesia, a few years ago they had the No Surprise Billing Act at the federal level, and so the problem is that if you can't get into a network for an insurance company, then, and whether they let you in or whether you can agree to terms with them, you're going to be out of network. And so if you're out of network, you can't balance bill the patient. So if my bill is $500, and the insurance company says they're going to only pay me $200, then I have to take it to an IDR, individual dispute resolution, and now the cost of that, it's a loser pay, and the cost of that, so they'll offer you, so say I think the average in anesthesia is like a $400 bill or something like that.
Still very reasonable when you compare it with other services.
But it's in order to do the IDR, it costs you like $350 to do it, and so the insurance companies may say, well, we will pay you $200. Well, now you've lost money because your help and for you to keep your doors open cost you more than that. And so those are some things that could be worked on here at the state level, just on those type of things. But I think Mark Green is doing something trying to do something on the federal level on the prior authorization that delays. I mean, I've had issues before where you have somebody that's been authorized by the insurance company for the surgeon to do surgery on them, and so I provide the anesthesia service for that surgery, and then after the fact, the insurance company decides no, we did not authorize that, and so they stop payment and don't pay the surgeon, and here I am, I've already paid my nurses, and now I have to wait for them to get their dispute resolved, and I'm already out the money for paying my nurses, and so that's one of the issues that kind of the business aspect that's
well, the
kind
business
of frustrating.
aspect, and while I'm totally editorial opinion, totally opposed to a socialized medical system, the role of finance and money into the medical service, it's like a case that if you had two patients and you're considering open heart or you're considering heart transplant, does the age of that particular patient matter whether it's going to be paid for? And if somebody's 26 years of age and they're going to get a heart transplant, great investment. We're going to invest in this patient's future. Somebody's 82 years old and they're in need of a heart transplant. Are we going to invest in a heart in a person whose lifespan is far less than the 26-year-old?
Yeah, and that's another aspect of not just the financial aspect, but it's the ethical aspect of it. And when you go down the road of socialized medicine, that's a completely different animal. And obviously with the liberty mindset of particularly the South, but of America, we have the ingrained belief of we should be able to attain the care that we think that we should get, and of course there is a cost to that, but yeah, those are some things, and that's and I often say that whether it's corporate medicine or socialized medicine, oftentimes that's two sides of the same coin, in that the providers and the patients are often widgets.
Exactly.
And, I'm try to advocate for individual personalized care and for the patient. And that's sometimes a uphill battle.
But the most interesting thing about the entire medical care area is that its success has led to its financial failure. And what do we mean by that? Look at how long we're keeping people alive today versus 30, 40 years ago. I was asking a class the other day, I said, how many people do you know in your 90s? I can tell you when I was way back in high school, to meet somebody 90-year-old, you expected them to be in the dinosaur age. And today, the people in their 90s, abundant. People in their 80s, that's the middle ages of today's time. We'll talk more about that, and then I want to, at least as we conclude the program, talk about your legislative hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the season ahead. We're visiting with Dr. Representative Brian Terry, who is sharing some wonderful, wonderful insight.
Hi, I'm Jason Hansen, a former CIA officer. In these uncertain times, with rising geopolitical tensions and skyrocketing inflation, protecting your financial future is crucial. That's why I trust Advantage Gold for all my precious metal investments. They're the only company I buy from, period. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a 100% free gold guide. See exactly how gold can safeguard your wealth. Again, call 800-900-8000 today.
Paid for by Advantage Gold. Performance may vary. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Always consult your financial and tax professional.
Progressive knows when you're in your RV, you're already on vacation. That's when you become Vacation You, who just camped where there's absolutely no shade. Even though regular you burns easily. In fact, Vacation You burns too, but is too stubborn to admit it, which is why regular you gets in trouble at the dermatologist, because Vacation You doesn't do doctors. So bundle your RV with your home or auto policy and earn an automatic discount from Progressive. And spend the savings on the both of you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
It's your captain speaking. To the passenger with the Mirror Fast soft shoes, smart move.
No way am I letting travel constipation ruin this trip.
Can't blame you. Mirror Fast works fast, but without the harsh side effects.
Since I'm such a smart traveler, can I move to first class?
No. Close the curtain, Carol.
From the makers of Miralax, new Mirafast soft chews work naturally with your body in as little as 30 minutes to give you a comfortable go on the go. Look for Mirafast at Walmart today. Use as directed for occasional constipation. Contains magnesium hydroxide.
We're talking with Wanda Copley at the Villages of Murfreesboro.
There are many things that I really like about being at the Villages of Murfreesboro. Number one is the staff. They are very caring and seem to care about us as individuals and work really, really hard to provide a variety of activities that anybody could find something that they want to do if they move to the Villages of Murfreesboro.
Come see us, the Villages of Murfreesboro. We're near the Avenue on Willow Oak Trail.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
FM 1019, FM 100.5, WGNSradio.com. The Good Neighbor Network. This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
This is Bill Krause, the WGNS Radio Roundtable Thursday morning edition. We're concluding a very interesting, educational, and to me, highly inspiring visit with one of our state legislators who serves Rutherford County, as well as serves the medical community for many, many years, Dr. Representative Brian Terry. Brian, in the remaining few minutes, what do you see ahead in the legislature that you believe the Rutherford County resident will find to be extremely, possibly, a great opportunity for change?
So, a great question. From a healthcare perspective, I'm just going to throw this out real quick. One of the bills I passed this past year was the Physician Workforce Information Act, and I'm working with Department of Health and to gather information on that to see how we can recruit and retain physicians in Tennessee. We just, one of the big issues going back to rural health, we were able to get recurring funding for the MTSU Meharry Medical School and to help with rural programs. So that's one thing that I think from a healthcare perspective I'm excited about. Yes. One thing that I do think that the locals will need to know about, and I do think that they will need to be engaged on this. I passed a bill for a solid waste task force. We had a few years ago, I guess it was early 90s, there was a solid waste act that was management act that was put out there, and we do get money from that, but I think it's that fund has $20 million. And anyway, we're using some of that funding for a task force over the next 4 years to figure out solid waste in Tennessee, Middle Tennessee in particular, including things like incineration. Obviously, we have issues with solid waste in the landfill here. That's the number one issue in my district by far.
Absolutely.
And we don't need to be expanding a landfill here, particularly if we're looking at potentially incineration and moving towards, not burying stuff near a river, but alternatives to that. And so those are some of the things that we're going to be looking at. I've submitted some names to the speaker to appoint, and so we should be getting some information on that pretty soon. So that's a big one. I think there will be a push next year potentially on transportation. I know that the road builders came to us this year, not with a bill, but they're talking about wanting to index the gas tax. That's something that I didn't support the
How
gas
would you
tax.
define that?
So as the consumer price index goes up, your gas tax is going to go up as well, and so which drives up the cost of all your goods and services. And so a few years ago, for me, always try to look for an alternative. And so when they increased the gas tax years ago, I actually had an amendment put out there. We had at the time, I think tourism brought in $1.6 billion to Tennessee, and I think auto-related sales brought in like $900 million, so it's like $2.5 billion. And my thought process was, if you can use one of the 7 cents that the state gets off of that and dedicate that towards roads, you could increase the amount in the road fund. And obviously that's grown over time. I think we're close to $3 billion in tourism taxes now, and more in auto sales. And so that's something that I think will be a discussion on next year as well.
Well, related to gas tax, and please excuse my ignorance in not knowing the answer, people who are driving electric cars, what are they contributing to the maintenance and building of highways?
So a couple years ago, and so therein lies the issue is those cars are actually heavier and have
wear and tear on the concrete and asphalt.
And so we passed an amendment to the Transportation Modernization Act. And so when they renew their tags, the Boyd Center at UT put an estimate on how much they would spend in gas tax. And so when they pay their tag, they're having to pay that fee, whether it's a hybrid or they're a full electric vehicle. And so, I mean, if you're going to use the roads, you're not pushing it off on somebody else. And so I get the the frustration, but everybody's got to help maintain the roads.
Well, here's the funny thing about it, as we were talking about the medical field, that the more we improve keeping people alive longer and alive better, most hopefully in all cases, building cars that are much greater in fuel efficiency. I can think back on my first car, a 1950 Chevy, and I was so proud I got 8 miles per gallon on it, and it was a good car. So we've improved efficiency, which means less tax paid per car on its miles, but yet the cost of building and maintaining the infrastructure keeps going up. So how we relate the difference between our improved efficiency in mileage and our less ability to pay for it because of that mileage.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I know they've had some discussions on that. Ironically, my bill that I had, or my amendment that I had years ago, they were discussing that. Here it was 5 or 6 years later in the I'm not on transportation, but I was listening to it, and they were discussing some of the stuff that I was talking about years before. And you're correct, as cars get more efficient, but whether it's the weight or the usage, and obviously the growth of the amount of people coming to Tennessee, it's a big issue.
Without making an editorial comment, and please excuse me for doing this, when I read about the desire to put a commuter lane on interstates or freeways that you pay to drive that lane to be able to pass everybody's bumper to bumper, coming from Southern California, and I always remember vividly, for anybody is familiar with Southern California, specifically the 91 freeway between Riverside County and Orange County. And you would be bumper to bumper to bumper, and that was a wide freeway, 6 lanes in each direction. And you would see 5 lanes stop, stop, start, stop, stop, start, stop. And the one lane that somebody has paid a fairly good amount, and it's usually Porsches and Mercedes and Ferraris hitting that lane. And I always ask the question to Caltrans, which is the highway people of the state of California, if that lane was converted back to reducing the traffic load on the remaining, would traffic at least have a reasonable flow? And they said yes. So the query is do we put in lanes that you can buy extra, and does that create an equity problem?
Well, and that's the thing we have the choice lanes that are going to be coming in, and I think the bidding's going on, and it may be 27, I guess, when they're going to start with some of that, and they hope to be done by 2032. It's gonna it's not a toll road in that that's the only way that you have to get from point A to point B. You do have a choice, and it's going to help offload those that don't want to pay that choice. I will say that a few years ago I had a bill. It did not go. It went to summer study, but for me, we have like Lyft and Uber, and if you could Lyft and Uber into Nashville, and then you have a grid A, B, C, and D, and now I think like Elon Musk, he's electronic car that just can taxi on its own. Well, if you can drop somebody, Uber or Lyft from Murfreesboro up to downtown, get off at a stop there, and then be electronically car moved to where you need to go, because that's the problem, is getting there, and then how do you get around Nashville is the problem. And I think they've tried some of that in like Toronto and in Arlington. And
I'm not sure I'm yet ready to ride in an undriven car.
We'll probably get there. So
we have had a wonderful visit this morning with State Representative Brian Terry, also Dr. Terry, friend Terry, good Terry, and so forth, who has we've had a nice visit, and I hope you have enjoyed the visit as well as I have, and we wish you continued success. We wish you continued serving as a role model for today's men and women and tomorrow's men and women who contribute so much to the political life and political success of our community, state, and nation. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much.
WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna.